The silence after their dismissal was a suffocating pressure. A black hole, my supervisor sneered, a familiar refrain. Absorbing everything, contributing nothing. Their loud, dismissive voices declared me useless, a void for my quiet nature. In that chilling stillness, something solidified. The inadequacy they projected, that emptiness, became less a wound, more a blueprint. This void, meant as my end, became the silent crucible of my rebirth. The words hung in the air, a barb meant to diminish, to relegate me to perpetual irrelevance. "She's a black hole," he'd sneered, confident I couldn't hear, describing my quiet nature as a void. For years, I had internalized that label, believing my capacity for deep thought and observation without outward expression was a flaw, a social disability that kept me overlooked. Yet, as I processed the sting of his careless cruelty, something shifted within me, a subtle yet profound reframe. What if my perceived black hole wasn't emptiness at all, but rather density, a unique strength to absorb, to observe, to hold information without fanfare or immediate reaction? This wasn't victimhood, it was a realization of power. My passive presence had indeed been used against me for too long, enabling the slow, quiet siphoning of our family business assets, the deliberate exclusion from critical conversations, leaving an open wound that bled silently. My lack of public outcry, my deliberate silence, had been mistaken for ignorance or indifference. But beneath that quiet exterior, a strategic resolve began to form. The initial chaos of betrayal, a tempest of anger and regret, slowly, definitively gave way to a chilling calm. I understood now that my ability to absorb and observe had equipped me with an unparalleled vantage point. The time for silent absorption was over. A different kind of quiet was about to begin. My family always said I was distant, lost in the stars, a mind more comfortable with equations than emotions. They called it aloofness, a disinterest in the tangible world around me. What they failed to grasp, or perhaps refused to acknowledge, was my innate gravitational pull towards understanding the intricate mechanics of systems, whether financial, legal, or even interpersonal. My quiet observation wasn't a sign of detachment, it was the intense focus of someone mapping the hidden currents beneath the surface. Yet, my siblings, particularly, found this an uncomfortable truth. Their entitlement ran deep, fueled by an underlying fear of their own perceived incompetence. While I meticulously dissected complex data, they actively wove a public narrative of my apathy, my disengagement. They claimed I didn't care enough to engage, a convenient justification as they systematically began to dismantle and reallocate inherited assets. My cosmic perspective, they insisted, meant I was ill-equipped for earthly grievances. But their elaborate charade, designed to secure control and paint me as uncaring, was, in reality, a series of calculated maneuvers, each move a precise cut meant to isolate me. This was the silent truth behind their noisy accusations. The immediate fallout had settled into an uncomfortable hum, but instead of succumbing to the noise of their pronouncements, I found myself drawn into a profound silence, a space where quiet observation matured into calculated strategy. While they were busy manufacturing narratives and making rushed, self-serving decisions predicated on perceived authority, I began to chart a different course, not emotional confrontation, but meticulous investigation. My goal was clarity, anchored in fact. I moved from simply witnessing their actions to actively seeking the paper trail, the digital breadcrumbs they so carelessly left behind. I started with specific targets: legal documents related to the property, comprehensive financial records detailing recent transactions, and all digital communications that might establish intent or timeline. This was about disarming their chaos with my quiet control. It was an internal pivot, harnessing my natural inclination for detail and order. What hidden strengths are you harnessing in your own silent battles? Each piece of information I gathered wasn't just data, it was a thread, weaving a tighter, undeniable narrative that would eventually speak for itself, patiently awaiting its moment. While they celebrated, my unseen work began in the quiet hum of raw data. For months, I absorbed bank statements, trust documents, property deeds, and shell company filings. Costs mounted from tedious record waits to thousands in expert consultations, a property lawyer on arcane statutes, a forensic accountant for irregularities. Within this dense information, I found the distribution technicality they missed, hidden in an overlooked clause of the state's Uniform Partition of Heirs Property Act. They'd seen the surface. I was mapping hidden fault lines. This methodical absorption, like a black hole drawing in light, illuminated their blind spots. The cosmic map of their downfall was forming. The silence I had cultivated was about to be broken, not by me, but by the legal notices my siblings found waiting in their mailboxes. The first ripple of my strategy, a carefully calibrated tremor, began its subtle work. Each envelope contained an official summons, one for a comprehensive property valuation of the family estate, another challenging the validity of a hurried transaction from years prior, involving a lakeside cabin they presumed was theirs alone. Their initial dismissal of my quiet dissent had been absolute, a dismissive wave of the hand. But these filings, backed by preliminary financial reports I'd meticulously compiled, laid bare discrepancies they had long ignored or simply hoped would remain hidden. The ease of their established comfort began to erode, replaced by a dawning unease as the first light bent to reveal inconvenient truths. The email storm began quietly, a few stray raindrops before the deluge. Soon, their reactions escalated into a chaotic symphony of desperate calls, thinly veiled legal threats from a discount lawyer, and a clumsy social media smear campaign. Every frantic message, every public accusation was a desperate attempt to rewrite history, but it only proved the wisdom of my strategy. I met their noise with silence, their chaos with calm, directing all communication through my own measured legal counsel. A small but crucial investment in maintaining my peace amidst their spiraling aggression. The true confrontation occurred weeks later in a sterile conference room. They entered agitated, a whirlwind of accusations and threats. I, instead, sat in quiet anticipation, my folder neatly stacked. I didn't raise my voice. I simply opened it, presenting their faces with the meticulously documented evidence. The dated emails, the notarized agreements, the transaction logs, each outlining their times, specific legal and financial liabilities. The bluster evaporated, replaced by a dawning, sickening realization of mounting legal fees that now dwarfed their initial gains. It was a stark reminder of the power in drawing a line. What boundaries have you had to draw to protect your peace and your plan? The truth, once revealed, was a silence more deafening than any shouting match, shifting the balance of power irrevocably. The quiet hum in my office wasn't the silence of absence, but of completion. The final wire transfer had cleared that morning, the equitable settlement cementing the definitive close of the stolen assets chapter. It was not a victory shouted from the rooftops, but a precise, undeniable correction, the universe rebalancing itself with a quiet inevitability. My new position wasn't just acknowledged, it was indisputable, built on a foundation of integrity, not inherited chaos. The past was a closed loop, the future an open horizon. With those consolidated resources, I poured my energy into an ethical venture, a sustainable tech incubator designed to uplift rather than exploit, generating real value where before there was only extraction. This was more than an investment. It was an active reclamation of my family's true legacy, rebuilding a reputation they had tried to dismantle. They had once called me a black hole, a cosmic devouring force. They were right. I just wasn't devouring what they thought I was. I was absorbing everything I needed to create my own universe, where I was unequivocally the center of my own design. The blueprint for this new reality was already unfolding, each line a deliberate, powerful choice.